Welcome to today's meditation from the School of Christian Mysticism. Welcome to those who are joining us on Zoom and to those who will watch the recording at some time in the future. We quite often make use of the Lectio Divina in these meditations, but today I'm going to offer an image for the meditation. So it'll be Imago Divina, which follows the same principles really as Lectio, in that we run through the overt image first of all, and then pick out any parts of it that may have some particular significance to us and to those who are present live at the moment. We will do that silently because this is a recording, and others will be able to join and do that silently for themselves as well. Pick out some part of the image that has a particular meaning or impact for them for meditation, and then move on into contemplative prayer at the end. And the image I've chosen is one from the 18th century, which comes from a book that was compiled by an English mystic called William Law. He was a follower of Jakob Boehme, a German mystic who was surprisingly popular. I say surprisingly because his work is really quite esoteric. It's from the Western esoteric tradition, really. But surprisingly popular in England, particularly northern England, in the sort of late 18th, early 19th century, when groups of people used to meet together to discuss Jakob Boehme's writings and concepts. And they were church-going people, but they met outside of the church in order to follow and be inspired by these teachings. I think these kinds of groups have met together throughout the history of Christianity, really. And we're one of them today, really. But the image that I want to offer is, as I say, from the Western esoteric tradition. And I'll share it with you now. It's interesting that this image would have been used by those groups for their meditations all that time ago. And here it is. It has the title, as you can see, of the tree of the soul. And particularly for those who are perhaps not used to working with images of this kind, I'll run through some of the overt imagery first of all. So it's a series of circles, as you can see. At the bottom here, we have what's called the solar world, and in the middle there is the light world. I should say that the whole of this imagery relates to the inner person, not to the world outside, but to the inner person. And you might say that And of course, what I'm offering is my interpretation, so others may well see something different. But the light world here is the persona, if you like, that we present to the world of our ego self. And that's surrounded by what law calls the dark world. And those of you who have an acquaintance with the teachings of Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, will be aware of his concept of the shadow. And this really is analogous to the shadow. It was drawn long before Jung, of course. In fact, Jung probably drew from the Western esoteric tradition, really. But this shadow is that aspect of us that we don't want to be. It's all of the impulses and thoughts and memories of things we've done and said that we shouldn't have. All the things that we don't want to be and that we would prefer to keep secret, really. Sometimes even keeping secret from ourselves, of course. And in order to develop both as a person and spiritually, we need to recognize this dark world within us and deal with it. Often in spiritual practice, this can happen during contemplative prayer, that things from the dark world that we've repressed find their way into our consciousness during contemplative prayer. And this can be quite distressing, especially for people who've not had this kind of experience before. People may need help with that. So that's the lower circle and the circle surrounding it. Then outside of that, we have a circle which William Law calls the fire world. It is written on there. You can't see the writing very clearly, but he calls it the fire world, which you might see as hell, really, the world of fire. Above that again, we have, you can see the writing here, paradise. And above that again, a world called the light of majesty. And within that, the triangle of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And within that triangle, the one, the absolute, the Godhead, the single origin of all being. So this diagram really depicts the whole inner person. And prominent in this is the palm tree, hence the title of this, the tree of the soul, because the palm tree reaches up from this world right up into paradise, bringing to mind Psalm 92, which says, the righteous will flourish like a palm tree. Here's the flourishing palm tree. But at the bottom of the palm tree, there's a branch. And this branch is stunted. It's not flourishing, it's not growing, it's stunted. And we can see that there are influences coming in to the solar world. On this side, we see a person in prayer, contemplative prayer. And that person is receiving the light from paradise, which is a reflection of the light of majesty above it. These are all one, of course, ultimately. The light of paradise that breaks through the fire world, breaks through the dark world, and brings the meditating person into contact with the light of paradise. On the other side, on the other hand, we have the stunted growth that doesn't reach into paradise, that is actually getting influence from the fire world and the dark world. And that is stunted. You can't see the detail there, but in that ray there is a bird. I can make that bigger. That's a bird which looks as though it's struggling to move upwards, but it's constricted by the beam coming down from the fire world. It can't spread its wings, it can't move, it can't get up any further than it is. It stays within. The solar world. There's other imagery in here, but I won't go into detail of that. So the palm tree flourishing in the light of paradise, bearing fruit for the one who is meditating but stunted and bearing no fruit, and for the one who is not praying. That's a simple overview of the image. And what I would suggest now is that you view the image and pick up on whatever part of that image has some special impact or special meaning for you, in the way that we do with Lectio Divina, picking out phrases or sentences, but in this case, picking out parts of the image, or it may be the whole image if you wish, whatever has an impact on you. And just silently meditate on that. And now for those who are not there already, we can move away from thoughts of the image and concepts. Move away from any ideas of our own, any thoughts and concepts and images, and move into contemplative prayer, where we open to the light of majesty shining within us, mediated through paradise, so that the tree of our soul can grow and flourish and bear fruit, because of the work of God within us, not because of anything we can think or do or imagine, but being open to God working within, giving ourselves over to God working within. That concludes our meditation for today.